Sports reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. 2-5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chaser, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout. Mic check, lights flash, game time, stay ready. 2 vets in the zone, keep the pressure real heavy. Big hits, big plays, yeah, we breaking it down. Truth rings in your speakers, every word is the crown. From the north side hustle to that southern flame. Midwest grind, west coast of the game. Sports talk kings, yeah, we wear that crown. Turn it up, let them know it's about to go down. Sports reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. 2-5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chaser, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout.
It's about to go down.
Yes. 2-5 is here, y'all. Sports Reports is ordered, and we're going to get right to it. Today, we're talking about the AP Top 25. I don't care about the coaches, but whatever. AP Top 25. We're going to talk about Notre Dame specifically, and then we're just going to break it all the way down and talk about it overall. So when it comes to the Top 25, college football rankings, I hate that I have to ask this question every year. But the question is relevant this year as well. What weighs more? A good win, a good loss, a bad win, or a bad loss? So with 136 teams, everything just can't be created equal, especially when some of those names have more value and power than others. So when you think about it like this, saying, what up, Scott? Saying, I'm getting there. But this is the thing. So when I look at Notre Dame, can you look at a loss to say that a team is one of the better teams in the nation? I don't see why not per se. But the problem is that you should probably have some wins first before we even have that conversation. Now, the first thing that came to my mind was people that call LeBron James the GOAT, even though he has more finals losses than wins, right? It just doesn't even sound right. It's an oxymoron. So Notre Dame played 2 good teams that are ranked number 4 and number 10 right now. They lost by a total of 4 points. That makes sense to have them ranked if we're talking about this is week 11 and we're looking at the first college football rankings or, the playoff rankings or whenever they come out. If we're looking at that at that point, that's justified to have that conversation. As you're sitting here with a big donut in front of you, I don't think the conversation is that relevant. So even like when you explore those losses, right? The first loss against Miami, Notre Dame got their ass whooped. Like we can look at the scoreboard after the fact. We could look at the final and say it was a good game. It was a close game. It had the late game drama. You watched the game front to back. See, look at you. You trying to take all my points before I even get there. That's why you my man, because you smart like that. But like Notre Dame got whooped on both lines of scrimmages. The only reason that game ended up being close is because Mario Cristobal got the controls. And we know what he tends to do in close games late in the fourth quarter. He sits on the ball, tries to run clock with 10 minutes left in the game, and it's not even necessary yet. So they allowed Notre Dame back into that game. So now as I'm looking at Notre Dame's schedule here, they got Purdue, at Arkansas, Boise, NC State, USC, at BC, Navy, at Pitt, Syracuse, and Stanford. So which one of those games outside of USC would even have the name to bring them back into the rankings outside of their name being Notre Dame? And I think that's the element that's missing from these conversations is that people use these preseason rankings. And by people, I mean the people that are actually voting on these top 25s. They use these preseason rankings to justify what happens after. So it's almost as if they rank teams based on this is where I think you're going to end up versus this is where I think you are. So an 0-2 team being ranked, it just doesn't sit right with my soul, even though I know that Notre Dame has talent, even though I know that Notre Dame, was right on the verge of beating Texas A&M the other day. So this is, the 6th team that's been 0-2 and ranked in the top 25. We haven't seen it since 1988. That would be the Michigan Wolverines. How about that, Scott? But anyway, so as Notre Dame sits here at 0-2, they had a bye week before A&M, and they still gave up 41 points. And their head coach, Marcus Freeman, right, supposed to be the defensive savant. So we saw you get whooped on the line of scrimmages, which is your bread and butter. And we just watched your head coach get whooped on his specialty, his side of the ball. Now, granted, that game goes to overtime if the kicker or the holder doesn't bobble the extra point. But so what? I don't care, because there's too many teams out here that deserve to be ranked. And when we look at it, it's only week 3. You don't have to make a definitive statement at this point. That's why I said that my first top 25 isn't coming out until after next week, because we don't know. Just 3 weeks ago, South Carolina was a sleeper. You know, people had South Carolina going to the playoff. My partner, Mr. Logical, had South Carolina getting to the national title game. And now Lenore Sellers is hurt. And so now how do you punish a team that has a hurt quarterback, right? Because now when you look at South Carolina, they lost to Vanderbilt, who played the same Virginia Tech team that South Carolina opened the season with. Vanderbilt outscored them 34-0 in the second half. Virginia Tech I'm talking about. But now Virginia Tech just lost to Old Dominion. Their coach got fired. So here we are. So South Carolina was ranked number 11. Vanderbilt goes into their house and wins. And now South Carolina's just not a good team because they're not ranked anymore. So is Vanderbilt a good team, or is South Carolina a good team? Or is neither a good team? Or do we just not know? USF, right? We came into this season. Ashton Genty no longer in Greater Idaho. And people still had them ranked for some strange reason. Even though Ashton Genty was the engine that made that car go, people thought, hey, let's go off of last year. Let's put them at number 25 or so. And then they got stomped by USF, who turned around and went into the swamp and beat a team that was ranked. And I said, and people said it's because you're a Florida State fan. It wasn't because I was a Florida State fan. I don't know why the hell Florida was ranked to begin the season. But even with that being said, using this Notre Dame thing as a guideline, Florida lost on a last-second field goal to USF, and then they went on the road at night and lost to a team that some people are saying is the number 1 team in the nation. So why is it 1-2 Florida ranked then? Could it be because their one win is against Long Island? Probably so, but they got to win. They got something that Notre Dame doesn't have. So Notre Dame, no doubt, will find their way back in the rankings by the end of the season. They don't need to be there today. I don't know why we can't treat the top 25 as something fluid. Now, what I mean by that, I'm not saying that Mississippi State should be a top 5 team, so don't try to go extreme with me. They beat Arizona State, a lot of people's preseason Big 12 champion. But if that's the case, why aren't they in the top 25? And I got to step that one back because I'm Mr. SEC bias. And, I can't even call bias. LSU, right? You got Clemson out here looking like crap all season long. So when you played LSU week 1, it was like, hey, these are 2 heavyweights trying to fill each other out. Let's see how this game goes. Clemson had the lead in the third quarter. It was only 10-3. We know what happened after that. They come out the next week, go down 16-3 or so to Troy. Had to come back and, turn on the engines to get that going. Then they come down to Bobby Dodd, and they lose the other day. Now, preseason, I did pick Georgia Tech to beat Clemson. But I was a coward. Said I let Dabo get the better of me. The motivational speech worked. So I ended up reneging and picking Clemson to win that game. But nonetheless, Clemson lost that game. So do I demerit LSU now because Clemson wasn't what we thought they were? Do I not give Georgia Tech the proper credit because Clemson's not who we thought they were? Or do you look at it and say, hey, Clemson lost to two really good teams? So, but that's what I'm trying to figure out. Penn State, ranked number 2 in the nation. Why? Now, granted, right? If you're just looking at return and production, the running backs, Drew Aller, you got to have Penn State somewhere in the top 5, I would think. But I don't know what about Nevada, Villanova. I don't know what I'm supposed to take from that to justify saying Penn State is the number 2 team in the nation, right? But all of this is inner working because no one's talking about dropping Ohio State because of what Texas is doing out here. They're winning games, but Arch looks like shit. The same thing that I said after week 1 still applies. He was given the generational talent tag because of who he's related to. Arch needs to be on the bench, to be honest with you. To just be flat out honest with you, what I saw against UTEP the other day, a CUSA team, soon to be Mountain West, unless they joined the Mountain West this year, I can't even keep up with it. Arch needs to be on the bench. And Texas is only where they are because the people that created the preseason polls said this is the best team in the country. So now if you drop them to say 15-ish, to that 13 to 15 range, do you just feel like you don't know that people are going to think that you didn't know what you were talking about? This is what happens. Georgia went into Knoxville the other day. And I'll be public enemy number 1 that said Gunnar Stockton's not that good of a quarterback. And he went in there and dueled with Joey Aguilar. And they pulled it out. So when I'm looking at this, if things are all fluid, because LSU hasn't looked good. They beat Clemson. They beat Florida. But you tell me any point in the season that Garrett Nussmeier has looked like a Heisman candidate. LSU still can't run the ball, which was my big concern about them coming into this season. So what are we doing? Why are these rankings here? Outside of the fact that it provides people like me a chance to argue with people like you. But outside of that, what nutritional value do they hold? Because they're not even the rankings that we use for the playoffs at the end of the year. But just keeping it going, right? Oregon, they got the big one in 2 weeks, or, I guess it would be about 12 days now when they go to Happy Valley for the whiteout. And up until that point, we got, an FCS team, Northwestern, that Tulane beat as well. You're going to have Oregon State, the Civil War this week, and an Oklahoma State team that is a shell of itself. So, yes, Oregon looks great right now. And if they go into Happy Valley and lose a game, we're not going to drop them that far because they went to Happy Valley and lost to the number 2 team. If Penn State loses, we'll make jokes. James Franklin can't win the big one. Oh, here we go again. Where have I seen this before? But you ain't going to drop them that far because your perception is Oregon's one of the better teams in the country when we have no earthly idea if they are or are not. Now, we know that they have talent. All these teams got talent. Which brings me to Illinois, who went into Durham last week, beat Duke. They came back home and beat on Western Michigan. So this week, they go to Indiana. Indiana ought to be a damn shame to themselves when you look at this out-of-conference schedule that they've had and they're going to continue to have. And I love Kurt Signetti, but I just got to call a spade a spade. I'm not trying to be bigging up the people that I like. I'm trying to be objective here. Indiana ought to be a damn shame to themselves. But here we are, right? Illinois coming to town. So where's College Game Day decide to go? Miami and Florida. The same Florida team that already has 2 losses to include to the team that Miami just beat by 37 points. And then I got people on X arguing with me talking about who cares about Indiana and Illinois. Well, you know how you make people care? You show up. You show up. Game Day's been to Hard Rock. Game Day's been to Gator games. Plenty of them. This is a chance to expose the country to 2 new teams that they might not be familiar with. We're going to watch. It's college football. We love it. We're going to watch. Who's going to turn off college game day because it's in Bloomington, Indiana? Whereas Big Ten, or what is it, Fox, Big Noon and Fox, they're going out to Salt Lake City for Texas Tech and Utah. That's how you do it. But anyway, Utah and Texas Tech, they take care of themselves. They play this weekend. So Michigan, this is where you cut off your you mute me, Mike, Scott. You mute me right here. Michigan. Why was Michigan ranked to start the season? And what evidence do we have that Michigan is a ranked team right now? They beat New Mexico. Yay! New Mexico got a Big Ten win this year. They beat UCLA. Oh, they fired their coach this weekend after an 0-3 start, after they paid Nico $1.5 million or so. Okay. Then Michigan, the one time we saw them against Oklahoma, Sharon Moore left his nuts in Ann Arbor. So they beat up on Central Michigan this past weekend. Shout out to Connor Stallions. 60-point win. And now Nebraska is supposed to be scared of this team coming into Lincoln this weekend? I don't think so. But we'll see. We'll play that out on the field, right? So why did USF get kicked out of the ranking if we were going to keep Notre Dame in this ranking? Is it just solely the margin of loss that they had? Is it solely because they're a G5 team? Because when I hear the talk when I've heard the talk over the years, it's been these teams don't play anybody. Their schedule isn't as tough as the SEC schedule. So they go out here, they beat Boise, they beat Florida, who's in the SEC, by the way. They lose this game, and y'all couldn't wait to get them out of the top 25. Get on out of here. You know what I'm saying? While we're still waiting for Tulane to make an appearance. What do we do if Memphis beats Arkansas this weekend? Does Memphis get in the top 25 because they get an SEC win? So, as I was saying, Notre Dame is a 26.5-point favorite over Purdue. Let's just hypothetically say Notre Dame wins that game by 3 points. Are you going to drop Notre Dame out for struggling with an unranked team? I doubt it. So that's why this is all a farce, because you're not even willing to react to what you see. Baylor, right? Only loss was to Auburn. They beat SMU, who, if we're using last year's metrics, that's a team that played in the ACC title game and got to the playoffs last year. So that's my problem. Like, we're counting last year in some places, not counting it there. We're telling you that losses are better than wins. But I'm the crazy one that people want to spend their time arguing with. Now, Tulane, back to Tulane. Guess what Tulane's doing this weekend? They're going down to Oxford, Mississippi to play Ole Miss. 12.5-point spread on that game. Tulane's already got 2 Power 4 wins. Now, we could argue about the quality of the team that they beat. But you just told them to beat a Power 4 team. You didn't specify they had to beat Ohio State. Ohio State's got Washington in 2 weeks. 12 days. So just saying. So as we peel it back and we explore Notre Dame, is it simply because their name is Notre Dame? Is it Irish privilege? From the standpoint of Notre Dame is one of the forefathers of the sport, one of the great teams of the sport, great names of the sport, great crowds. Touchdown Jesus, apparently he ain't extra point Jesus. Or else they would have been in overtime and possibly beat A&M the other day. So A&M's at number 10. So what happens if A&M loses to Auburn next week? Not this weekend, but next weekend. What if A&M loses there? What if the Gators beat Miami this weekend? Are we keeping Notre Dame there just because they're already there? These are the questions that I need to know the answers to. I want to know your thoughts, though, because I know what these jackasses that vote on the top 25, I know what their thoughts are. But what are your thoughts? Should Notre Dame be ranked based on who they lost to? Not who they beat, because they haven't done that yet. But based on who they've lost to, should a team be ranked? And if not, who should take their place? I mentioned Mississippi State. I mentioned Baylor. I mentioned Memphis if they win this weekend. Tulane. Right now, Tulane's probably in the driver's seat for the playoff from the G5 standpoint. And, oh, by the way, there's UNLV out there. The Running Rebs are out there. So let Notre Dame play their way back into the top 25 because their schedule will allow them to. You don't have to hold on to it just to have them there. Like having that 24 by their name is not going to make me more likely to watch them play the Boilermakers this weekend. But like I said, I want to know your thoughts. Let me know. Should Notre Dame be ranked? Yes or no? Who should be ranked? Who shouldn't be? And most of everything else, like above everything else, what are we doing? So, hey, Sports Reports is Ordered. We'll be back tomorrow night. Myself and Mr. Logical, 8 o'clock Eastern, talking about NFL Week 2, college football Week 3, giving you extra thoughts and just our takeaways from the games and all that. So join us and be sure to like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things, do all the good things, hit your notification bells and all that good stuff. 2-5 out.
Side hustle to that southern flame, Midwest grind, West Coast of the game, Sports Talk Kings, yeah, we wear that crown, turn it up, let them know it's about to go down. Sports Reports, no gimmicks, no clowns, 2-5, Mr. Logical.